Are you a Muslim who's married or looking to get married? I'm sure you've heard that more than 50% of Muslim marriages are ending in a divorce. Now that's unfortunate, but there's help out there. My name is Hina Mirza. I'm a registered psychotherapist with a specialization in Islamic counseling. And I've been working with hundreds of couples building healthy, happy, strong marriages. Sign up for the course that I just completed with Happy Strong Family to foolproof your marriage and make sure that you have all the right tools and all the right skills to lead a healthy, happy, strong life with your partner.
All right. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you may be out there in podcast land. Welcome back to another episode of the Happy Strong Family recurring weekly podcast live stream brought to you every Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern. I am Brother Mushtaq, your ongoing host for this podcast series with the Happy Strong Family team. And today I am very pleased to present this week's guest, Jahanzeb Ladha. Brother Jahanzeb, you and I, we've known each other for quite a while now, going back a number of years, but this is your first time in the podcast guest chair. Don't worry, I'll go easy on you. We were just discussing that jokingly, half jokingly, off air before we went live, but no pressure. We'll keep this very light and conversational. So the focus for everyone watching today is on sports. And again, the entire theme and the raison d'etre, why do we do this podcast weekly live stream, is to focus on family and the concept of family, parenting. So today we're going to discuss the impact of sports on parenting, on raising children, the benefits, psychological, social, physical, obviously. And there's also a thread or a stream here with regards to faith as well. So, Jahanzeb, without further ado, I'll pass the microphone over to you as well. What's your hot take on this? Let's start with an introduction, kind of, warm up the audience to this concept.
Thank you so much. Very happy to be here, Mushtaq bhai. Amazing to see what you guys are doing, and proud to be one of your guests in this amazing lineup that you've had. So thanks for the introduction. My name is Jahanzeb, as he said. And I guess we're here to talk about Ittehad today and the things you mentioned. So the fundamental, I guess the starting point for all of this was seeing how our youth are growing and with all of this electronics that have been, the environment has been saturated with over the last 20 years. You can't escape it now. It's everywhere. We're almost living in a virtual environment.
Right.
We find people are more social on their devices, even in a public setting, than they are amongst one another. And so we're finding that the youths are largely disconnected, even though the world is very connected. So we want to go back to the basics. And we find that we observe this sort of breakdown in the connection between the teens and the adults going forward.
Right.
So we started at a young age. We want to build a bond with our kids from a young age. What we're trying to, I guess, address and combat is that, yes, when the kids are young, you bring them to the masjid, you drag your son or daughter to the masjid, you put them in madrasa or whatever. But once they hit 13, 14, your influence on them is diminished greatly.
Right.
And we find that without the right tarbiyah, and even as adults, many of us, we have this inferiority complex about our identity.
Right.
So we wanted to strengthen that identity and take pride in being Muslims and take pride in our deen, understand that what we have is the best path and the best way of life. And so we wanted to use this organization as a conduit to developing that.
Okay. All right. So now, Jahanzeb, let's look at it from a very practical point of view. So in terms of children and devices.
Yes.
Okay. Let's really now kind of go down this rabbit hole. And you and I both know, especially here in the province of Ontario, yes, we broadcast out of Masjid Dar al-Iman in Markham, but in the greater context of the province or even the country. And now I'm going to scale it up even more and go to Europe, go to a lot of the Scandinavian countries, Denmark, the Netherlands. What are they doing in particular? And then you'll see where and how I'm connecting the dots.
Sure.
The dots here are that a lot of the countries, the province of Ontario included, they have actually put in restrictions of device use on teens in classrooms. Okay. So there have now been published multiple scientific papers, reports, studies, surveys, you name it, undeniable, that have said unequivocally social media harm is more than the benefits, especially for young children, especially for children that are going into preteens, that they really cannot discern for themselves. So let's just put these devices away at school. So let's really kind of talk about this now.
Mm-hmm.
How do we get, in a very practical manner, our children away from devices, my own children included? Okay. As I've said on multiple podcasts, when you point at somebody, always remember that the three fingers are pointing back at you. Okay. And in many cases, I've always said, I'll not only point three fingers back at me, I'll put all the fingers back at me and say, you know what, I have to correct myself first before even, trying to correct others. So with regards to Ittehad Soccer, okay, the Ittehad Soccer League, what is the inspiration there? What are the mechanics? How do you get children to engage? Just let's go through this kind of model. What is it all about? The coaching? Is it all about the fun? Is it all about just the social interaction? What is it? What's the magic here?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, no, I'm not talking about Harry Potter. What is the magic here that kind of brings it all together to, again, keep the children away from devices?
Yeah. I'll start with a little story.
Mm-hmm.
Years back, when I was in school, one of my friends went away, came back after a year or two. He went to the States. I was in the Middle East.
Mm-hmm.
We met up. This was like grade 9. So we're catching up. And I said, so what are you into now? He goes, oh, I'm really into hockey. All right, that's cool. So what do you play? He's like, oh, I don't play. I watch. Right.
Okay.
So that was like made something go off. Right. And then today, if you talk to the kids, they're like, oh, I'm really into soccer. I'm really into skiing. But they're talking about virtual.
Mm.
They're into the game. They're really good with their thumbs, but they can't connect the ball to their foot. They can't go down a hill.
Right.
And that's sort of my other venture, which I run. The motto of our adventure company is nothing virtual, all reality. Right. It feels great to score a goal in FIFA and on the Xbox and win. But when you're on the field and you see the ball going into the corner of the net,
right,
that's a whole different feeling.
100%.
Right?
100%.
We can look at videos of ice creams, or you can have the ice cream, like all kinds of analogies out there. So by default, parents and kids, they defer to the easiest and most comfortable option. We're creatures of comfort. So for example, you'll go to weddings, and I've seen parents with 2-3-year-old kids, and they've got an iPad in front, and then they're feeding them.
Yeah.
Because that's the easiest way to get them to shut up.
Right.
Sorry to be rude. Right. Kids, even animals get glued to the screen. We've seen videos of cats and dogs staring at the screen. There's a lot of science behind that, and all the way they develop the apps and the devices and the screen. So those are designed to get us hooked. And obviously children are very easily influenced. So at the end of the day, when I come home from work, I'm tired and my kid is whining. The easiest thing for me or any parent to do is hand on the device or go play a game or get on the screen. So that's the lazy and easy option. And kids won't complain because they're not understanding the harms right now. Like if you ask them, what do you want to eat? They want to eat junk all day. When they reach the age of 30, they'll realize, oh my God, that was not the right choice.
Right.
But right now, that's the best choice for them. They love it. It feels good. So that's the easy, comfortable option.
Right.
And then we have this sort of concept of COVID babies, the kids who were growing up at that age when they couldn't go to school, everything was virtual. Again, the harms have been published about that. So through this program, we want to create an environment where, yes, there's some kids who naturally are active and they like to play, but a lot of them they don't, and a lot of them are shy as well.
Mm.
So now we're making a friendly, comfortable, safe environment where it's open to all skill levels and both genders to come in and make new friends.
Right.
And we've seen some kids. We had a kid in our first season. He came with his brother. His brother was social, but as the younger one who was about 6, he was crying and he wouldn't let go of his hand.
Mm.
And we're getting the kids lined up, but his father had to take him off the court.
Okay.
Right. But after 2 or 3 weeks, he's in there and he's playing and he's kicking. So you need to create an environment that's comfortable for them to come in.
Right.
Right. They'll see, oh, there's another 5-year-old girl. Oh, here's another 6-year-old boy.
Mm.
And if they can come in, I can come in. And we like to cater to all levels. So we're not, our current program, which is our Saturday recreational league, it's not highly competitive where the coaches want their team to win and they're only picking the best players. Our policy is equal play for everybody.
Okay.
Right. We want every kid to get the same amount of time, the same amount of kicks. The win for the coaches is the development of the kids,
right,
not the score in the game. That's the win for us in that. So that allows us to help kids and parents, get out of the easy, lazy option and come into something. And then the fundamental thing there also is we train all of our coaches and the leaders of our program. They're all mentors and Islamic role models.
All right. Okay.
Right?
Okay. Do tell.
So, for example, we have Sheikh Osama. He's our vice president. And this is a way for the young kids. We talk to them every week and we have a bond with them as well. So now we're building that bond with them slowly over this time. Where we're engaging, we're teaching them Islamic values. We had a bullying incident about a month ago in our current program.
Okay.
I'm not the best at dealing with these situations, so I have a team now. We have the Fair Play Board. So I said, hey, you guys have to deal with this. You give me a solution.
All right.
My gut reaction would be, okay, give them a warning, suspend the kid, whatever. But I know that's not the best approach. So I said, here's the problem. Tell me your solution.
All right.
So our coach Khattab, he spoke to both of the kids individually first and then to them together and taught them about Islamic values that, hey, this is brotherhood and this is why the brotherhood is important and the respect and the love. So when the incident occurred, they were fighting and one guy fell to the ground. But after coach spoke to them, they left with hugs and a better understanding of why we have to treat our brothers this way. And these are kids 9 and 10 years old.
Okay.
So we're trying to teach them this at this point rather than saying, oh, tell the parents, hey, you have a bad kid, so he can't come for a week. You're not helping the father or the parents, and you're not helping the kid either.
Right.
So what the Fair Play Board, the solution they found was a win-win for everyone all around.
Amazing,
right?
amazing. And look, I'll connect the dots in this sense, Jahanzeb. It really is about anti-bullying, right? And for any parent that knows what's currently happening in schools, there is the Pink Shirt Day. The Pink Shirt Day, not to be confused with anything else, represents anti-bullying, right? So that is a national movement and a well thought out movement. And it is discussed in schools, in public schools and in Catholic schools. But to do this within a soccer league, amazing. Kudos to you. Because look, bullying happens everywhere.
Yes.
Not just in schools, as you rightfully said, on the field, cyber bullying is a thing. We've discussed it here on the show in the past as well. But to have the Fair Play Board, to have the coach discuss it with the two kids, wrap it in the context of, look, you guys are brothers in Islam, and to really inculcate and to plant the seed of that in the kids' minds, and for them to walk away with hugs. Amazing. So now let's really focus here, I think, where the conversation is now going, and then we'll open it up to, I'm seeing a lot of, for anyone who doesn't know how we do the production of this, we have producer Kashif, oh darn, in the corporate world, you say the voice of God. I know many people will be offended. Obviously he is not, Nawaz Billah, but that's just a corporate term. Don't mind people. Sometimes my corporate self happens to kind of take place in the chair. He's producer Kashif, but he is the voice of the microphone. Many times he'll ask the questions. Jahanzeb is just looking at me right now. Is like, who are you, man? Like, what are you doing right now?
We need to get you in the soccer league.
Just get that foot out of your mouth right now. But Producer Kashif is the voice behind the microphone, and he'll be the one asking the questions, because I'm seeing a lot of questions all of a sudden coming into the stream here as I look to my left of the camera and on the screen there. So let's just quickly then talk about character development, right? You touched upon that. Tarbiya is the Arabic term. In terms of character development, what can such a sports program bring? Because obviously, like you rightfully said, some children are shy. Some children are not really, they don't really kind of get into sports for various reasons. Some kids are overly energetic. That's why for many parents, it's kind of the default. Oh, just put them into a sports thing, right? Ball hockey, soccer, some kind of gymnastics, blah, blah, blah. So let's just discuss this for a few minutes. What is it then that Ittehad, the Ittehad League does in terms of character development for children?
Right. So as I mentioned earlier, we have the concept of equal play and effort for everybody. So it's not just the kids who are most enthusiastic or the best who get to play. Even if they say, oh, well, coach, I need to play, otherwise we're going to lose. Well, no, we need that person also to play and develop and grow.
Okay.
Right. So we give that equal opportunity. So they learn that. The shy kids, they slowly warm up and thaw out and make friends. And our coaches do pay special attention if a kid needs that little bit of encouragement. We give them that little bit one-on-one time and get them practicing and getting good at the drills. Right. They develop the whole concept of, teamwork and communication. We teach them about different positions and how the tendency at a younger age is ball hogging. So we see a big blob of kids moving around the field or the court. So we try to tell them, hey, here's the benefits of working as a team, because as an individual, you can dribble around, but you're not going to be winning the games just by that. So we teach them, the defensive wall and how that makes an effect, right? What effect that has as a team. In addition to that, we always integrate this theme into our seasons called the Muslim World Project. So through this, they learn about different Muslim countries over the course of the season.
Amazing. Okay.
So all of our teams, in the first season, we started the whole thing in just a week. So we just named them after animals like everybody else. But then when we started our second season, we had our teams named after individual Muslim countries or territories that may not be the most well-known.
Okay.
So we didn't have Morocco, Turkey, and Saudi Arabia in them. We had Senegal, Dagestan, and the Comoros Islands.
Wow.
Right.
Okay.
And so the kids, with their coaches and their parents, they learned about these countries and territories over the course of the season. At the end of the season, all of these kids went up on the stage and did a collective presentation. To tie into your question, this was also helping them develop the group dynamics and public speaking and so on.
Awesome.
Right.
Awesome.
And one last thing that we do, which is integral, and we got direct feedback on this as well, that when it's salah time, we stop the game. And whether we're in a gym or whether we're in the outdoor field somewhere else, we do the salah on the field collectively to teach our kids that, hey, that shyness that we feel sometimes about putting my musalla down.
Right.
Everyone's walking around. I need to do my salah. What can I do? Okay, you know what? I'll just do it at home tonight. And missing the salah.
Right.
Is very common. Oh, why didn't you pray? Well, I was at work, I was in a meeting.
Good point.
Didn't have anywhere in the whole office building where you could find a room to pray, or you only need 8 square feet. But that is the mindset. That's the block. It's not the physical space.
Right.
So by collectively doing this every week, the kids realize, hey, it doesn't matter if we're not in a masjid or we're not in our house. If it's time for salah, put the musalla down.
Awesome.
Allahu Akbar, go for it.
Just that confidence, right? That inner confidence, inner strength. And shout out to Dagestan. So this is where I kind of say the 6 degrees of separation. I'm getting all kinds of silly today. I mean, just to finish the sentence, it was back in the day, many years ago, 6 degrees of separation from Kevin Bacon. Oh, look, there goes Mushtaq again using haram words like bacon on a podcast. But that was how it was known back then. So I'll say 6 degrees of separation from Jahanzeb, and I'll connect the dots this way. Jahanzeb knows Imam Nabil. Yes. Imam Nabil knows Tokir of Class A events. Tokir of Class A events represents Khabib. Khabib is from Dagestan. So there you go. You actually have 3 points of contact or 2 points of contact, 2 orders of contact to Khabib himself, who is from Dagestan, who could potentially come out to Ittehad Athletics and maybe rep one of the shows.
Maybe.
There you go.
Yeah.
Shows, soccer events. Events. There you go. So now in terms of the show, let's get to some of these questions. Producer Kashif, the voice of Kashif.
Jazakallah khair. So before we get to the questions, we'll just give folks the option. If you just want to talk about what's coming up for Ittehad and where to find information, and this is mostly for folks local in the Markham area. I believe right now you're doing like local leagues. So what's coming up next, and where do they find the information? And I also have the website up in case you want to talk to it a bit.
Sure. Real quick, what's coming up next is our summer season just ended yesterday. We had about 100 kids. And our fall season starts in 3 weeks. We have a massive new facility, a triple high school gym just down the road. So we have our Saturday rec program continuing. So the fall season will be from September till December. Kashif has the link up, so registrations are open there. We do have a show special registration price today during the show or for the rest of the day. So if you are inclined, today's the time to do it. And we also have a soccer academy coming up.
Okay.
So this will be more intense and a higher level of training and development for the kids from a young age all the way up to the teens for boys and girls. So we have that coming up. And we have multiple other streams in the work. So it's not actually Ittehad Soccer, it's Ittehad Athletics. So we do have plans for other sports that we'll be launching towards the end of the year as well and into the new year.
Amazing.
So everything is on our website, ittehad.ca.
Mhm.
You can shoot us a message if you have any questions. We have our toll-free number. That's how to get the information.
Amazing. And what's the general age bracket? From
right now, it's
from
4 to 12. For the academy, it'll be going up to the age of 17, 18.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And then we'll be having programs for adults as well, like you and I spoke about.
Amazing.
So
Amazing.
lots of stuff coming down the pipeline.
All right. Excellent. Kashif, some of the questions then, please.
Yes, Jazakallah khair. So we have some coming through Instagram. We also have some coming in live. So I'll get to the live ones first because likely they're watching now.
Yeah.
So one of the questions, I guess it's not really a question, it's an idea maybe for Brother Jahanzeb. You should look at archery and horseback riding to revive the sunnah sports in our youth. I believe that stemmed on maybe I'm wrong, but I think it's a hadith that the Prophet ﷺ encouraged horseback riding and archery. So have you ever looked into that? Maybe with your other company, Go Epic Adventures, or?
I've thought about it for a long time. I have an idea for a thing called Camp Sunnah, where we teach the kids archery, swimming, and horse riding. So yes, that idea has been on my mind. We just haven't got around to figuring out a way to do it yet. But great idea, and thank you.
Right. Jazakallah khair. So the next question that came in live is, it says, Amy, I think that's a typo. Any ideas to lower expenses for sports for kids? Organize leagues, and I think it should say programs as of, especially these days. So as you're organizing, is there any ideas you can give parents? Is there ways to that you've come across that they can lower cost, or is it? I from my experiences, what I tell parents, they should never be shy to speak to the organizers also, right?
Yeah.
Don't let cost be of concern. Maybe there's something that can be worked out if there is financial need.
Yes. So there's a delicate balance. So in the rec programs, the costs don't tend to be too high. And usually the cost correlates to the quality. I mean, it's anything we buy. So when there's a certain amount of cost that allows the organization to develop things in a certain way.
Right.
And you can do something very cheaply and miss out on a lot of those things. So for the rec programs, if there is still sort of cost issues, one way to lower the cost is sharing equipment, right? Sufyan's shoes, I've gifted them to his friends who are a little bit younger,
right?
And things like that. And on our end, what we do, and it's always open, we have financial aid. So we have corporate sponsors as well, all right? And we're able to use their support to offer financial aid. Alhamdulillah, we have had people applying for financial aid in our program from our first season till present. And alhamdulillah, by the help of Allah, we've never turned anybody down.
Alhamdulillah.
So we are registered as a nonprofit, and our goal is we want every child to play. We don't want a child's financial or a parent's financial limitations to prevent them from participating.
Yeah.
So that's never a barrier as far as we're concerned. We try to help. Now, once you get into the more, I guess, training programs, the academies, things like hockey and so on, then those fees do add up. And again, there's, again, like Kashif said, ways to talk maybe to the organizers, and maybe you can get some community support when you get into those sort of multi-$1,000 programs, right? But on a lower level, on our end, we try to offer, that aid to whoever needs it.
Right. Okay. Good to know. Next question, Kashif, please.
Jazakallah khair. So we have a comment, suggestion coming in from a viewer. Start where you can, brother. Start by organizing jogging groups with brothers and sisters of all ages, then using Zoom. Hold fitness classes for free for everyone looking to better themselves. So some advice for all of us out there, that if we're looking to start something, there's a lot of opportunities. It takes some effort, and like the Jahanzeb was describing, you start small and you continue to grow from there, inshallah. But it's just a matter. Usually, it's just a matter of that one person taking the lead on behalf of everyone to get things going, inshallah.
For sure, 100%.
Allah make it easy for
If
everyone.
I can add to what Kashif Bhai just said. So maybe the question I took was, okay, how do we reduce the program of kind of joining programs? But there's no real barrier to you personally starting on a fitness journey, right? Jogging groups. You have a pair of running shoes, you can go jogging, you can do the fitness. There's many sports and activities where you don't need a lot of gear to start doing it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you can just do it like that, right?
I'll maybe kind of lean back towards the question and maybe put a different angle to it. And that is basically, look, I know even for myself, there are days when I go to the gym here in the masjid and it's just like me in an empty room, right? And it's just hard, do those weights, do the bench press, blah, blah, blah. But if there's somebody else, even sometimes I'll make sure my son comes in, hey, Shahir, do some pull-ups, right? It's just that little bit of an extra motivational thing when there's somebody else with you. So let's you and I discuss off air how we can bring some programs within like the Islamic Academy of Markham. Again, in the evenings, the space is empty. So yes, to the person's point, again, whether the person is male or female, doesn't really matter. But to bring, there is mention of brothers and sisters. So again, you can have that. Set days you have it just for brothers, set days you have it just for sisters. And then, it's just easier for those like-minded and like-motivated individuals to kind of have that group. And it's a support mechanism.
Yes.
It's a support system, right? You have the support. You just feel like, yeah, you know what? I'm paying for it. There's support. There's other like-minded individuals. No judgment. As a lot of the newer sports facilities are always saying now, it's a judgment-free zone. So this is where it all comes down to. So let's you and I discuss off air for sure.
Definitely.
100%.
Thank you.
Producer Kashif, another question, please.
We have some comments coming in also. MashaAllah, tabarakallah, great work, great podcast. May Allah increase you in good deeds. We have another one here saying, so inspiring, MashaAllah. There was a few people at the top saying salam. So wa alaikum assalam to all.
Oh, wa alaikum
audience.
salam.
So a few comments. Sorry if I missed your salams. So there's a few that came in through Instagram also. If you have live questions, keep them coming also. So someone was asking team versus individual sports for child development, pros and cons of each.
Okay, good question.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So with individual sports, I think the pros are obvious. You get that individual attention. The programs are tailored to that particular child and their particular specific goals. Like if he wants to be a forward, then all the training is geared towards that. So a lot of pros, obviously, if you're really serious about developing on a much higher level and pursuing that further than most kids. The cons, again, are we are already individualistic as a society. And it's always about me, right? Even in our team sports, everyone wants the ball. So there's sort of that con, and obviously the cost is a prohibitive con for the individual, sports, individual training for team sports. Individual sports like mountain biking or swimming or skiing, I think there's mostly just pros. I do a lot of that, and it's amazing to do those things. And a lot of our people, they don't actually do it, right? When I was going skiing and rafting and all of these things, one of my friends said to me, yo, Jahanzeb, man, you're too brown. I mean, he said, you're too white, right? So I told him, man, you're too brown. You need to just get out and try these things.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of the pros on those kind of activities. But in terms of the training for team sports on an individual level, those are the pros and cons. On a team level, the pros obviously are, it's really just the opposite. That they learn to work as a team. They make those social bonds and connections. And we want our kids to have more Muslim friends and good influences around them. Right. Because the Prophet ﷺ told us more or less, paraphrasing the hadith, that if you can know a person by knowing his friends.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Well said. Well said.
So we want, yes, we live in this society and we want to be integrated and be good citizens, but our Habibs, our close friends need to be the people of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Well said. Well said. And let me kind of now circle back to an important point. We've touched upon this in previous episodes, and this is where I do my thing where I look directly into the camera and I say, look, it's a sacrifice. at the end of the day, for every parent. And you hear certain examples of people of color who have risen to the top, whether it be the Maple Leafs or the NBA, and I'm talking obviously top tier sports leagues, and you become that multi-million-dollar athlete, but then you never hear of the other stories of those that don't rise to the top, right? So for every parent making that sacrifice in terms of the financials, the time, the energy, getting up maybe 6 o'clock in the morning, driving to Orangeville or driving to Ottawa, having that, that commitment to take your child through that sports program. And there might be like an interleague game, there might be an interprovincial team game, and so on and so forth. This is a definite commitment. But then at the same time, and I'm going to be very critical and very harsh here, when we're putting down X amount of hundreds of dollars for that new car lease, might be 0% financing lease, yada, yada, blah, blah, blah. How much of that can be diverted to your child? So yes, as a parent, you need to make hard decisions. That's what parenting is all about. If you don't do it, who will? So yeah, I'm being overly critical. But at the same time, it has to be said, that yes, representation matters. We are all Canadian citizens. You and I are the children of immigrants. We're now first generation Canadians. Our children, are second generation Canadian. Our grandkids will be third generation Canadian. And by then, who knows? And this is another topic for another podcast altogether, if they will even identify as Muslim, just the way things are going in Canadian society in general. So let me circle back and say, look, in terms of programs like Ittehad Athletics, to sum it up, it brings together a strong Muslim identity.
Yes.
It brings together confidence, like you say, confidence in the point that, yes, I can be a Muslim. If the call to prayer is happening, hey, I'm going to break out my prayer mat and just do my salah. Might be on a soccer field, might be in the boardroom of an office. But if you build that tarbiyah now, if you build that character development now, then later, hopefully, God willing, you will have that strong Muslim, Canadian Muslim, that is that integral part of Canadian society, an active contributor, individual contributor, team contributor, but at the same time is strongly rooted in their faith as Muslims, right? Mm-hmm. There's no question about it. Why not? Inclusivity, and I've had this discussion with many people, especially as of late, inclusivity for all, which is a provincial mandate, at least educationally, also means inclusivity for Muslims. Mm-hmm. Think about it. I'll repeat it. Inclusivity for all also means inclusivity for Muslims. And that means unequivocally, unabashedly, openly practicing your faith. So, Producer Kashif, any more questions, please?
Yes, inshallah, we have a few more. So, related to what you're talking about as parents making the sacrifices, there was a few people asked about how do you work in sports into. So this person was asking how to make sure to incorporate sports in your schedule as a parent. You are always busy. Someone else was asking, wrong question, how to balance financial goals, education goals, and time for sports. So I know these are very personal questions. There's no like right or wrong answer, but maybe just advice being involved in this field and work for so long. Like how can people sort of balance this and work in time for these activities?
Two keywords I would say here. One, what Brother was talking about sacrifice. I might be inclined just to sleep in on a Saturday morning or a Sunday morning, right? But make that sacrifice and get up, rest later, right? Yeah. And the second is balance. So yes, we have to do, our school, but all the things that kids and parents have to do, just make a schedule and make it balance. And I find that insan is creature of habit. So once we make good habits and a good schedule, then you will find there's plenty of time for everything. And we won't always have time for everything, but we'll have to make some choices. So again, it's about prioritizing and then sacrificing and then finding that balance. Everyone I think can find time for 1 or 2 hours of sports in a week, right? If that's the question, how to balance, sports. Everyone can find 2 to 4 hours for Deen and Deen studies in a week, right? So we don't need to start off with, intensive 3, 4, 5 days a week. Start with that 1 day a week. Start with 1 or 2 hours in a week. Right. And we'll find that a lot of times where we're spending, I don't want to be very critical of the systems we have in place, but a lot of for example, madrasas, they're 2 hours, right? But of those 2 hours, how much time is your child actually getting with the teacher?
That
Right?
one-on-one time, yeah.
Right? So maybe he can learn the same in 30 minutes in a more focused setting, but that might require a sacrifice of additional money or private lessons or something. But there's efficiencies to be found,
Right,
is the point I'm trying to make.
right,
Rather than the easy, lazy, convenient option.
right.
So we can find those efficiencies and make that sacrifice and find our personal balance to start somewhere.
100%, 100%. And there's nothing wrong, and I'll say it slowly for extra effect. There's nothing wrong with asking for help,
Mhm.
because we're creatures of comfort. We're creatures of habit, as we're both saying. And I know for myself, I'll just go look at Google Maps, and this is very stereotypical, and I rarely do this, but I'll say stereotypically, men will be like, "Oh, I'm just following the map." Stereotypically, the wife, your spouse, your better half may say, "Oh, there's a shortcut, follow this." And as a man, stereotypically, I might say, "Oh, you know what? I'm just going to follow the map." So it's going back to that old, trope, that stereotype of men just don't listen, and they will just, if the map says, "Hey, you're going to drive, and you know what? You're going to veer off and hit a wall," you'll do it, right? Because you're following the map. You won't ask for directions, is the point here. So let's break that stereotype. Let's break that trope, and let's ask for help. What does that mean, practically speaking? It means it takes a village. It takes a support network. It takes a team of parents, plural, parent with an S at the end, to say, "Hey, Bilal, Jenny, Chad, Yusuf, my son or my daughter, they're in this sports league. They're in the athletics program. Hey, I can't do the drop off or pick up tonight. Can you do that for me?" Right? Or, "Hey, I need a pair of soccer cleats, soccer shoes. You got a used pair?" Nothing wrong with asking. Nothing wrong with asking. If anything, it helps. Just think about it. We all have to, as perhaps children of immigrants, kind of break out of that comfort zone and just saying, me, I can do all of it. No, we can't. Can't do all of it. You need to ask for help. Create those support systems, create that network effect. There's nothing wrong with asking for help. Producer Kashif, please.
So a question we have is, so as an organizer, so people that are looking to organize leagues where leagues may not exist and start things up, mashallah, take the initiative, advice you have based on your experience, I guess, of starting Muslim sports leagues and clubs, and your biggest challenge when organizing.
Okay. Great question.
Very good.
Go
Insider
ahead.
information.
Yeah, absolutely,
Yes.
man. The more the better.
Definitely spread the goodness. So my advice would be, don't try and do it alone. Number one, find one or two friends who believe in your vision and see the same problems that you're trying to solve, have the same passion for helping our youth grow and develop. It's not going to work without passion. If you think you just need people who are going to do it for the money, it's not going to work. You need people who are doing it because they want to do it and they want to help the community.
Right.
So get one or two people to be on board with you first, number one. Number two, start small. Start easy, start simple, right? Just start doing it. Don't worry about how's it going to look in 3 months. How many kids will we have? When we started, Mushtaq bhai, as you know, we started last October.
Yeah.
And we just started in the gym here.
Yes.
And believe it or not, my goal at that time was, I said, you know what? If we get 15 kids to sign up, I'm happy. It's a success. And alhamdulillah, that number got blown out of the water. And here we are today, right? So start small, start easy. Don't worry about having anything in place. Just have some professionalism in terms of a structured program and start and end on time. That don't do it in a desi way,
a haphazard way.
Yeah, do it properly. Even if you start small, start with a group of friends who are passionate. So that would be my sort of advice. If there's something you think, just try it out. What's the worst case scenario? After 2 or 3 months, you'll realize, you know what, this one didn't work. Okay, back to the drawing board. Let's try volleyball, or let's try cricket, or let's try it differently at a different time. Figure something out, but try. Just get started. Biggest challenges. No, there are two big challenges that we faced. Alhamdulillah, with Allah's help, we've solved those problems now. But those are challenges anyone who's starting will face. The biggest challenge I find in this field is the fields. Is the space. To find the right and the suitable space, which is right in terms of the space itself, the layout, the venue, the timing, the cost. Finding the right space is the biggest challenge.
Okay.
Number one. So you'll have to work on that, and maybe get help from other people who are running programs to find out how they did it. And the second biggest challenge is having the right people. So it might just be easy to say, hey, Mustaq, you, me, and Kashif are going to train the kids on basketball, but I'm not a basketball star. Like, you've played in high school, but you don't necessarily have enough to teach the kids. So get the right people. If you get the right people, people will value the program. Kids will learn. You'll get benefit, and it'll command a premium as well.
All right. Good to know. Good to know. Producer Kashif, some other questions.
I'll just ask a follow-up, because when we're talking about like Muslim leagues, and not even sports, like any like conferences, any gatherings, my personal opinion, like the term Muslim has sort of become a marketing term to gather people in. But when you go to those events, not to judge anyone, but they're not necessarily Islamic or even following like the basic principles of like modesty, segregation. So to me, it almost becomes more dangerous to go to those, because it's normalizing things. So anyone that is sort of organizing like a Muslim faith-based thing, what advice do you have for them to sort of keep the religion in mind? Like, alhamdulillah, like one thing at Ittehad, you have a sheikh on board, right? So is that something others should consider? But what advice is as to sort of make sure the Islamic aspect is still there, if that's what you're trying to sell?
Great question.
Yeah, amazing question. And I think you don't need a sheikh on board. Obviously, to have the ulama with us is a huge blessing, but don't let that be a limitation. Oh, we don't have a sheikh, so we can't. No. You be true to yourself and true to your deen. You can fool everybody, but you can't fool Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right. So
well said.
Don't use the word Muslim or halal as a marketing gimmick. If make it Islamic.
Right.
Like, make it dini, make it really connect the words to the actions.
Right. Well said.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's really my advice. I saw something a couple of days ago, something about some event, and there's like Bismillah babes coming there. That just didn't compute those two words together in the same sentence. Like, so don't use this. Everyone is, it's all about, like I said, what's trending and what's fashionable. Make it Islamic, stay true to our values, and we'll get those people.
Yeah.
Then the people who have these concerns about wanting their kids to develop and grow into strong Muslims, they will be the ones coming to the program. And even the ones who are maybe not so inclined or on the fence, they'll also be drawn towards it, that, hey, this is a solution, and this is a way in which we can become stronger Muslims. And this is what drives us.
Right.
Our fundamental goal is not to develop good soccer players or good athletes. Our foundation is to develop strong Muslims.
Awesome. Be authentic. Be authentic and find your audience. Audience in the sense that, to your point, Jahanzeb, find your niche. If it is parents wanting to focus on that character development, and have a fun time, learn teamwork, learn skills, build that confidence through sports, then cater to that. Right? Don't be something you're not. Right? And don't just pass it off, as we're all saying in various ways, a marketing gimmick, a marketing ploy. End of story. Producer Kashif, wow, the questions are on a roll. Questions, comments?
Yeah, so we had one more come in through Instagram, so it's a good segue from what we were talking about. Now, it came in, and I can't really read the tone of it. I don't know if it's a sincere question. It came in through the internet, but
sure,
it is a question that people would have, even Muslims themselves would have. And sorry, here it is. So it was saying, I am not Muslim. I don't understand why Muslims need own leagues. Seems divisive. And even, even I've heard many Muslims even have this sentiment that why do we need like a Muslims only league? Why can't we just, City of Markham has a lot of soccer programs and stuff. So you, Mustaq, you being on a board of a masjid that organizes programs also, yourself organizing a Brother Jahanzeb, a faith-based, like, what's the answer to this question? Like, living in Canada, why do we need a Muslims only soccer league?
Great question. You want to go for it first, Jahanzeb? Go
Sure.
ahead.
That's a great question. Yes. And I can understand why people might think that. So I'll start off by saying that as Muslims, we believe Islam is the best way of life. And a person who is a true Muslim, not just a Muslim in name, and a person who strives to follow Islam to the fullest, that person is going to be the best citizen automatically. He's not going to lie. He's not going to cheat. He's not going to evade taxes. that person automatically will be the best father, the best mother, the
Mhm.
best wife, the best sister,
Mhm.
the best husband, the best neighbor, right? We'll be questioned if our neighbors go hungry when we don't eat.
Yeah.
So long story short, we believe that Islam, the true teachings of Islam, teach you the best character. Like our Prophet ﷺ,
So
وَإِنَّكَ لَعَلَى خُلُقٍ عَظِيمٍ, that we made you with the best character, right? So if the person who's a true Muslim will embody all of that and will be a desirable citizen, a desirable neighbor, a desirable compatriot, a desirable employee, a desirable boss. So putting that there, a Muslim child, and a Muslim as he grows into a teen and young adult, who goes away from the deen, become the opposite. There's a huge chance they'll become a very bad representative of Islam and bad citizens and bad neighbors and so on. So in this environment that we live in, where there's so many different identities and it's the melting pot,
Mhm.
so we don't want our kids just to forget their values and just become like everybody else, and the benefit that they could provide to themselves and to society at large by being good Muslims, that gets evaporated.
Mm.
So this is why we don't have these programs to divide, but rather to preserve our values and to help and nurture and grow those values.
Right.
Which
Right.
this is not, as I mentioned, this is not just about becoming a soccer player or an athlete. This is about becoming strong Muslims for these reasons.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll say becoming strong Canadian Muslims.
Yes.
And I'll say one phrase and I'll repeat it. There is strength in diversity. And I'll repeat it again. Strength in diversity and representation, especially for a place like Canada, where it's known through our Charter of Rights and Freedoms that we are a multicultural society. And it pains me to read about, whether on the news or on LinkedIn, what's happening in the UK. Very recently. And if you don't know what's going on, please educate yourself. Get out of just reading about the stocks or crypto or whatever it is. Educate yourself on worldly issues that are impacting Muslims globally, especially what happened in the UK, that there's a lot of immigration issues, but couched basically in very strong, right-wing neo-Nazism that smacks of racism, and it is racism, to the point where Muslims and brown people in general, Sikhs, were literally hurt, their shops and businesses vandalized because they were quote-unquote immigrants. Well, let me tell you, they were probably 9 times out of 10 a first, second, or even third generation British citizen. But it pains me to continue to read about this rhetoric or to have these discussions even, that I'll give you another analogy and I'll bring it back square and fair back into the world of sports. If you are a footballer, if you're a soccer star, and I'm not going to talk about the big ones, I'm going to talk about those that are people of color. If you are your country's, let's just say PSG, okay, you're representing France, but you're originally from Algeria or originally from Morocco. You make that winning goal, you kick that ball square into the net, all of a sudden you're France's favorite son or daughter. If you miss, then all of a sudden you're that Algerian immigrant. Never mind that you're already a French citizen, but all of a sudden you're that dirty immigrant. So it pains me to even have that discussion in 2024, no less. So when we talk up and say there is strength in representation, there is strength and unity in difference, that difference is meant to unite, especially in a country like Canada, which could be on the brink of something very similar to the UK. Again, as I said, and I'll never tire of saying this, I'm a child of an immigrant. Am I Canadian? 100%. Do I still get questions to this day? Not too long ago, just a year back, I was standing in the line of a Tim Hortons, and the gentleman, let's just say I was somewhere in between Kingston and Ottawa, Caucasian in background, kept asking me where I'm from. And at first response, just a gut response, yeah, I'm from Markham. Well, what else would I answer? I am from Markham. I've been living here for the past 18 years. That was just my automatic default response. And he asked me again. And I'm like, okay, maybe he doesn't know where Markham is. I'm from the GTA, from Toronto. He asked me again for a third time. And that's when it really hit home. And I'm like, oh, okay, this is rooted in some kind of deep-seated, perhaps bias, perhaps racism. Maybe let's see where it goes. He's like, what are you at? And I asked him, I go, what are you asking? He goes, where are you originally from? And then I just let loose on him. I go, I was born here in Canada. My parents came to Canada in the 60s from India. Back then, people didn't even know where India was. They thought my dad was Italian. So that's why you don't hear any accent on me. Does that answer your question? And then he got all out of sorts and he said, oh, I'm from the Canadian Army. God bless the Canadian Army. And he said, at one point, our minister of defense, no less, is a Sikh Canadian. A proud Sikh Canadian. And yes, we do have that representation here in Canada. So again, not to get all up in arms about this question, but I think to have strength and diversity, to have Muslim athletic clubs, to have Jewish athletic clubs, to have Christian private schools, it all helps. It all helps. Because again, diversity is inclusion. And inclusion means including everybody. So there's nothing absolutely wrong with representing your faith. It's not meant to divide. It's not meant to divide. It's simply meant to unite so that we, as perhaps first generation or second generation Canadians, can get up to that equity. When we say equality, what do we mean? We mean equal access. But when we are trying to break down and deconstruct notions of white privilege or capitalistic privilege, or something rooted in a legacy system where only the boys club can access, then we need all of these levers to help. And again, we could probably do an entire podcast show. Maybe we'll have like a red table discussion. Sorry for kind of a slip of the tongue there, but a red table discussion around just what it means in the United States and why so many companies are now stepping away from DEI initiatives, diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. It's because of these right-wing racists that are saying, oh, well, what about white privilege? Well, yeah, it's been there for hundreds of years. So why not have something that can uplift a particular segment of society to get to the standard that everyone already has? Mm-hmm. When we say, oh, it's expensive. Yeah. Why are we saying it's expensive? Because as a first generation Canadian or second generation Canadian, I'm still making up for where I lack. I may not have access to a cottage. I may not have had access to my parents' inheritance because my parents came with not even $1 in their wallet when they came to Canada, when they landed in the 60s. Every ounce of blood, sweat, and tears my dad and mom made were through their hard work. Yada, yada, blah, blah, blah. I'll get off my soapbox now, dial it back, and let's end this podcast on a nice note. Producer Kasha, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have some comments and stuff coming in. So
sure.
Let me read those. So we have someone saying, mashallah, great discussion. May Allah grant the guest and organizers immense reward.
Thank you.
Another viewer saying, thanks for this discussion. Great quality. Enjoyed it a lot. We have some comments coming in. So inspiring, mashallah. I'm not sure specifically when this was entered, but they're saying definitely agree with some point that was made. It's so important for our Muslim youth to have a good Muslim support network around them, especially in this day and age. Especially in this day and age when there's so much corruption and the Muslims are forgetting their identity. It's really nice to see things like Ittehad where the youth can come together. So yeah, it ties into what you were talking about also. So yeah, inshallah, we're approaching the top of the hour. Mm-hmm. Before we wrap it up, maybe I'll just ask Brother Jahanzeb a question. So whenever there's teachers on, whenever there's someone on that has access to a lot of parents and interactions, I always try to ask them for my own benefit that what's like, without naming anyone specifically, obviously, what's a pattern that you've noticed in kids that are excelling or doing well or well-mannered? What's something about the parents that you've noticed that you can give me advice that, hey, this is like something I've noticed that parents that are so-and-so, the kids are doing well?
Easy. Time and attention. Simple. If you are used to handing your kid off to different things, and just being on your phone or going for a walk or something, there's a difference, as opposed to, in our particular example, the parent was on the sideline or was running onto the pitch when there's a helping hand needed. That makes a huge difference. So it boils down to us, right? We have the place where we were playing in the summer. We had a tennis court right next to it.
Okay.
So we had we have a policy internally, and we make people sign off on this, that you have to stay on site during the entirety of the session with your child for
Right.
various reasons, safety, health, and so on.
For sure.
So when we started last year, one of the parents came up to me, tall Syrian guy, right? He goes, "Brother, I need to talk to you." All right, like, why can't I just drop my kid off and go? You know, because that's what I do at the Marka Masjid at Madrasa. I just drop him. I'm like, "Yo, Jazakallah khair," but I'll tell you why. Number one, this is not the madrasa, right? We're not babysitters. For safety reasons, we need you to be here. If your kid has a need, we need you to be here. We're not going to take them to the bathroom. If your kid gets hurt, they want mom or dad, so we need you to be here. These are little kids. I said those are some reasons, but the main reason I said is that we want you to develop a bond with your child.
Amazingly said.
Right?
Well said. Well said.
That
Well said.
if you remember your childhood, I said, we always wanted to show off our achievements in anything, something we drew, something we made, a video game level we passed, a sports skill we mastered. Daddy, mommy, look at me. The sons always want to look to their dad. Dad, look at this. Dad, let me show you this. And he said, you know, brother, that makes sense. And then not too long after that, he came up to me and said, you know what? Thank you so much, because by doing this, you've forced me to spend time with my kid, and I'm spending quality time with him that I didn't spend before.
Awesome.
I'm developing a bond with him.
Awesome.
Right? That same person today is Coach Khattab, who's on our Fair Play board.
Amazing.
Right?
Amazing.
So, as I mentioned, the tennis courts, we have some kids like Coach Khattab now, and other parents whose kids are excelling. They're on the sidelines. They're spurring their kids on. They're shaking them up if they're slacking off. They're attentive. So the kid knows my dad's here. We have other kids, with all due respect, they get out of the car, the kid walks to the field, and they walk with their tennis racket to the tennis court. They have no idea what happened in those 2 hours. Right. So that makes a huge difference.
Well said. Really well said. All right. So then let's wrap up.
Yes.
Jahanzeb, thank you
My pleasure.
for this episode. Let's you and I discuss off air about that Red Table series.
Sure.
Or whatever we decide to call it. May not be the best name for it. But I know for a number of guests, we've actually had that request.
Right.
That let's talk, serious kind of adult issues, which are not necessarily related to the family, and a whole bunch of issues, but are somehow tied into being Muslim Canadians.
Yes.
So I'll discuss that with you
off
air. All right. So this is just me in my own silly way. I've been kind of equal parts silly and serious today, but hey, take it for what it is. Comment, like, subscribe to this weekly live stream. We truly cannot do this without the support of our viewers. So thank you again. We do this in all earnestness. We do this with all sincerity, that this is a means of sadaqah jariya. This is a means to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And yeah, at the end of the day, look, we do this to kind of, in our own way, talk up issues relating to a happy, strong family that is rooted in principles of being a Muslim Canadian. So thank you for watching. Tune in often every Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern. All right, this is Brother Mushtaq signing off on behalf of producer Kashif, co-founder Keser just walked into the studio here, and Brother Jahanzeb. It's been a delight, an honor, and a privilege to have this show with you today,
The
my friend.
privilege is mine. Thank you so
All
much.
right, thank you.